Well, it's time for Sweet 16, episode 16, the Dan John podcast. I had a nice workshop in Washington, D.C. this weekend, and an interesting thing happened. As many of you know, I have my own theories about why things like coffee and red wine lead to longevity. And my theory isn't that there's something magic in the coffee or magic in the red wine. The magic is the fact that you tend to, when someone's having a bad day, you get a cup of coffee. When someone's having it comes on over, we open up a bottle of red wine. And what I think helps with longevity with coffee and red wine is the fact that there's connections made. I always use the word tapestry, and you can even see I'm making this knitting motion with my hands. The word fit from the old Nordic means to knit. And probably the best way to think about fitness truly is how you use a jigsaw puzzle. You fit the pieces together. What happened is a hand went up, and one of the things I also talk about in longevity is don't smoke. Wear your seatbelts, the other one. And the question was good. He said that at his work, the smokers have this really interesting camaraderie. They get together. They have their own jokes. They have their own gathering place, their own pecking order of how they do things. And I'm certainly not telling anyone to smoke, but boy, did I thought that was an interesting, at least question to talk about. I grew up in a home basically filled with smokers. When I grew up, we're talking about a generation, those who raised me, who survived the Depression, the Second World War. My dad was born during the First World War, during the height of the great flu epidemic. These are people who saw a lot and overcame a lot and made the world a better place. Their children, of course, have seemed to have undone all their legacy. What got me thinking about this is I grew up in a home filled with smoke. My dad and all of his friends, they all smoked. Am I saying smoking is okay? No. But what I'm thinking is, it's been spinning around in my head for a few days, is, boy, any opportunity we can take to build community, good community, is always a good thing. As many of you know, a couple days a week here at my home, I host intentional community workouts. We just got done with one. Today is Tuesday's Buns and Guns Day, and we work the hip thrust and goblet squats, and of course, we got to work the pythons. A week from yesterday is a holiday we invented here in the home called Christmas Adam. Christmas Day, Christmas Eve, Adam comes before Eve. It's just an opportunity. It's just our annual Christmas party, but we just invented it because not very much happens on the 23rd. So we figured that would stay off of most people's family things or school-related things. It's close enough to Christmas to stay away from school pageants, far enough away from Christmas to not interfere with family events. So we literally in this home invent reasons to celebrate. If you ever get a chance to come to my house for practice Thanksgiving, we do that about 4 or 5 times a year. Again, I'm not saying you should go out and smoke, but what I'm saying is there's a kind of wisdom in thinking about ways to come together in community. As many people, when I first got online in 1998, I thought the internet would actually glue people together. And of course, as we've seen, especially in the last 3 years, how divisive it can truly be. So I think part of my job, I think part of the reason I'm here on this blue-green jewel is to remind people of the importance of community. So this week, as we move into some of the funnest times of the year, let's keep thinking about what binds us together and not those things that separate us. We have a question from Damien, which brings us back to the movies of my youth and the Omen series. I hope you're nicer than that, young man. Could you tell me if you would change anything in the advised workout for boxers if he was an MMA practitioner, more groundwork involved, takedown, submissions. Well, I'm certainly no expert. I did spend some time with one of the most famous MMA coaches there about a decade ago. The conditioning for anybody who wrestles on the ground is going to be different. One thing I would think about more would be what we call anaconda strength, that squeezing strength. Certainly, you're going to have a background in tumbling. You're going to have a background in, I believe it's called American catch-can wrestling, which is, the scholastic wrestling I did. The judo, the tumbling, the rolling, all that kind of stuff. But the other thing I'd recommend thinking about are things like bear hug carries, the suitcase carrying, stuff like that. Stuff that teaches you to control your breathing while exerting pressure. For throwers, this is very important too. It was first explained to me very simply that you would think of, it's a weird way to think of it, but you're a bicycle inner tube, and our job is to whoosh, 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 fill up this area with pressure so that when we throw something, we don't break. We stay on the implement. You'd also see this in American football when someone's trying to go past you. It's not a bodybuilding move that holds them back. It's your ability to turn yourself into stone, which we call anaconda strength. Yeah, so I would recommend strongly, in fact, really, if you've ever tumbled, it is the best conditioning you'll ever do. I would keep a bucket close by the first time you do 5 or shoulder rolls in a row. That vestibular system really kicks in, and you don't want to have a lot of food in your belly when you do this one. Yeah, so more tumbling than you think, more bear hug carries and suitcase carries. That's a good question, Damien, and thank you. We have a question from Dave. Dave says, love the podcast and the workout website. Dave, thank you so much. Brian has done a marvelous job, and I'm really proud to be part of this. Currently doing the RKC bus bench workout and enjoying it. Folks, if you don't know, go to danjohnworkouts.com, and it's in the bus bench section. He's a father of 2 girls, 3 years and 1-year-old. And just like me, I remember those days. It had been 91 and 93 for me. Just downloaded 40 Years with a Whistle on audiobook. But are there any other resources or books you recommend for advice on raising well-adjusted and happy girls, or fatherhood in general? Well, both of my daughters, Kelly and Lindsay, are happy. Now, well-adjusted, well, let's just hope for that, huh? Listen, you're already there. You already have it in front of you, Dave. When my daughter graduated from the 8th grade, Kelly, I wrote her a book called From Dad to Grad. I quoted a bit. I think it's in Easy Strength, and I think it's in 40 Years with the Whistle, but it's free to you on the workout website, or just Google From Dad to Grad, Dan John. And it's funny because you can actually buy it on places where I get no money, which cracks me up. People are selling my free book for money, which sounds a little odd to me. But if I could give you one, let me give you 1 or 2 pieces of advice. Number 1, and this is huge, and your kids are young right now, so you can build this in. No television on school nights. In fact, boy, in hindsight, no electronics on school nights. When my daughter Kelly was a sophomore in high school, she said to me and Tiff, I want to talk to you about something. Oh boy, think about this. What good can a sophomore in high school say when she says, can I talk to you about something? So she sat down with us, and Tiff and I are like, okay, here we go. Something. And Kelly says famously, is it okay if I change my bedtime? I just think now that I'm in high school, I should be able to stay up past 8:30. Now, you can only imagine the sense of relief. You could probably still hear the, oh, thank God, coming out of both Tiffany and I. Well, we both said, well, sure, that sounds good. And she went downstairs, And then the two of us looked at each other and said, did they have a bedtime? And we realized we'd never set a bedtime, but we live in Utah. The sun goes down this time here about 5. Well, I think my daughters thought that since they had gone to bed at 8:30 every night of their life, that they had a bedtime. And there wasn't. It's just the fact that if they're not sitting up watching TV and just junk television, if the sun goes down at 5, and I always had dinner ready for them, they got their homework done, they read Harry Potter, at around 7:30, 8 o'clock, you kind of run out of things to do, and so you go to bed. I got to tell you, for academic and athletic reasons, so Sunday through Thursday nights, no TV, and you can go with the no electronics. I already just hinted to the other thing. We had a fixed menu, and many of our meals were made with the slow cooker. Many of our meals, so basically I would break meals into a grill meal and a slow cooker meal and try to alternate through the week on that. In fact, to the point that there was a time where I had the big George Foreman grill and a slow cooker. And when I was cleaning one, I was serving out of the other. And the next night I had to be cleaning the other and serving off the other. Having a fixed menu for the week. We always did steak and salad on Monday, Viking enchiladas on Tuesday, Wednesday was jambalaya, Thursday was breakfast for dinner. That was just what we did. Certainly you can change it any way you want. Later, when the girls were, probably from about 4th and 6th grade on, I also had a breakfast menu I followed with just a variety of simple meals to make. I had a thing we called crack oatmeal that took overnight to make, and I would make certain egg dishes, and I had a real regimented schedule. The upside of this is when the kids come home from school, say like you make a slow crock-potted chicken noodle soup. The moment they come in from school or their activities, the first thing they smell is dinner. You don't have to worry about all the damn fast food restaurants on the way home. Dinner is waiting, and the moment you get in, if they're starving, I mean, maybe it's not the best dinner in the world, but you can feed them immediately. Boy, I tell you, that was great. But the other side of that is this. When we went shopping, we shopped to the menu. So we didn't pick up a lot of extra junk, which was very valuable. And I tried to have all the shopping done one time a week. Now, if you ran out of something during the week, you would have a very simple thing. You just had to kind of, fill in the slots. Back then, sadly, the company just stopped. But we also had a weekly, it was called Winder Dairy would show up. And we would, the night before they came, just check through anything we might have ran out of. So the couple things I want to warn you as a parent: keep your kids as best you can away from fast food restaurants. Keep your kids as best you can away from junk entertainment, and do your best that every night you have a meal as a family. We had dinner when I was growing up at 5:10 every night. It was right after my dad got home. And my family dealt with disabled American vets, social upheaval, insanity in the world. But every night at 5:10, we sat down and ate dinner as a family. And I think that was a game changer, well, especially for me. So Dave, I love your question. Thank you for asking. And I'm just an email away to help you out. I had a question here from Callum. I am coming off a successful but tough 12-week strength program. Good. I am keen to try Mass Made Simple Light over the festive period for a change in programming. Mass Made Simple Light is a program I wrote for Testosterone Nation years ago, folks. It is similar but different to the actual program. And then he mentions, and the eating part should not be hard too. The key to gaining mass is to shovel down a lot of food. The only thing is that I have been enjoying a great increase in my deadlifts lately. Would you slot them anywhere in the Mass Made Simple Light program? Or do you think it would be worthwhile to take 5 to 6 weeks off of heavy deadlifts? Well, it comes down to this, Callum. So there's a rabbit there, and there's a rabbit there, and there's a rabbit there. How many rabbits are you going to chase? You just came off a nice 12-week program. You're thinking about doing Mass Made Simple Light over the festive period. Why don't you take care of mass building, and then at the end of 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever, come back and really make a run at the deadlifts. If you're on the site and you go to the Easy Strength materials, one of the things you'll find is an article. I think it's Easy Strength number 3. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I apologize. It's an article Mike Warren Brown asked me to make sure I got in there. It's how we increase deadlifts without deadlifting. I'm a big believer that you don't need to deadlift to increase your heavy deadlifts. My friend Vinny Tanner also has done some work on this and said, yeah, it's true. I think you can improve the deadlift without doing very much deadlift. High rep squats, improve the deadlift. Increasing your Olympic lifts, increase the deadlift. Sometimes people practice the deadlift and find that it just grinds them out too much. But for right now, let's stick with this plan. You just finished the 12 weeks. Mass Made Simple Light until you feel like you've gone through it. Take a breath, relax. Then, if you're going to do a deadlift program, do it then. Thank you. We have a question from Ian. Does adding loaded carries, various movements in volume and intensity, qualify as adding a lift to the 1 lift a day program? I have had success with similar routines like 1 lift a day, but I didn't do any carries, which I love. Any thoughts? It's funny, if you got to remind yourself that I'm 62 and I've been lifting weights since 1965. The 1 lift a day program came into my life before loaded carries did. Now, I had done some loaded carries, obviously, because anytime you pick up weights and move them out to the field, you're doing loaded carries. The one mistake I've done with the 1 lift a day is I have not brought it up to date because it is difficult. So here's the thing. Loaded carries build work capacity. Now, let's go back over my definition of work capacity. Very scientific. There's my vehicle right there. It's Thanksgiving, and I just bought 18 bags of groceries. The groceries, each bag weighs between 10 and 20 pounds, and I have a 24-pound turkey. To get it to my kitchen, there's 10 stairs. 18 bags, 10 stairs. How you bring them into the house? Well, if you decide to bring in 1 bag at a time, that's 180 steps up the stairs. I wouldn't do that. I'd try to strap as many to my arms as I could and carry them all at once. Well, that matrix of 1 bag at a time, 18 different circles, try to load up as heavy as you can for 2 or 3. Whatever answer you have to get all those groceries in, to me, that matrix is what work capacity is. Loaded carries build work capacity. So if you're doing the 1 lift a day program, I think you could easily bring in the work capacity work of loaded carries and not consider it a second lift. Like for me, when I used to do it, I would snatch on Mondays. Well, even though snatch is highly technical, it doesn't beat you up like others. So that might be a good day to do prowlers. If you're going to do front squats beat you up pretty good. So that might be a nice day to do the suitcase carry, which doesn't really hit your thighs as hard as anything else, but it sure hits this area here. So yes, I think you can incorporate it, and we're not going to make fun of you for doing both, okay? Thank you. That's a good question, Ian. Okay, we got a question from Matthew, and I remember when this question came in, I went, oh no, here we go. If people hated me for making fun of Turkish get-ups, I'm in trouble now. I'm a recreational judoka who uses kettlebells, but also mace bells, steel clubs, sledgehammers, sandbags, and Bulgarian bags as my supplemental strength and conditioning tools. May I ask your opinion of these tools? Yeah, you can. I watch the videos. I sit with people who, claim these cure cancer. It's all good, but to me, it's just more. What's your opinion of these tools, and request that you address their use in forthcoming articles? Well, Matthew, I'm not. I'm not going to talk about any of these. Obviously, I've used every single one of them, but I'm a barbell guy. And yes, I do use kettlebells and ab wheels and suspension trainers and some other things, but that's a set of tools I don't use. I've had sandbags in the facility, and I've always been told that they don't leak, but they always leak, and there's always sand everywhere. I do use sandbags now. I go to this little specialty store over here called Home Depot, and I buy the 50-pound bags of sand, and I drop them in a duffel bag. So you either have, if you have 2, it's 100 pounds, and you have 3, it's 150, and that's our bear hug carry station. I use sandbags over at Epic Fitness to do bear hug walks. But the other stuff is just more. Now, you can disagree with me here. I'm fine with it. If these things make a difference with you, keep doing them. But I always worry it's just more. I work with people who do a lot of these things, and then I'll ask them, well, do you teach Olympic lifts? And they'll say, I don't know how to do them. And I'm like to myself, you've been to certifications on all these different things, but you can't do the fundamental lifts of the snatch and the clean and jerk. In some cases, the front squat. So to me, it's not bad or good, Matthew. I just think that my toolbox of the Olympic lifts, the power lifts, the kettlebell family, original strength from Tim Anderson, the TRX, that set of tools is just better, in my opinion. We have an email from Jim. I've been playing in a senior softball league for 8 seasons. So it kind of reminds me of my athletic career. I always joke about kindergarten being the best 3 years of my life. And you're saying that your senior year is the best 8 years. So that's, oh wait, senior as in masters. I get that. This year I'd like to be in shape, like I've always promised myself, but never followed up very well. I am now using your park bench workout builder 3 days a week, and it's going well. Stop right there. Jim, you're doing it 3 days a week, and it's going well. But I can see right behind that there's a question here. There's a question here. I'm just giving you some advice from me. Jim, I've said so many times in my life, it works so well, we stopped doing it. Here we go. Softball season starts in early May. Which of your bus bench programs would you recommend to get in shape for softball? And should I take it right up to the start of the season or have some less intense workout before the first game? My advice is for you not to do that. Now, one thing I would recommend you start doing, there'd be, well, the same thing, but here in our valley here in the Salt Lake Valley, we do have places that now have batting cages. I would recommend you spend some quality times in the batting cages immediately. Start practicing your swing. And even if you're not a switch hitter, Jim, I'd love to see you go from both sides of the plate, okay? Mostly to keep the balance, the symmetry of your body. I cannot recommend any of my bus bench programs for you. It's the Big 21, the one lift a day, the Olympic lifting programs. They would all be overkill for you. So I'm recommending this. Stick with the park bench programs. If you're doing them 3 days a week, I might want to slide now to 4 days a week if you can fit it in. And the reason is when you look at the generator, as you move up to more and more days a week, there is more tonic workouts in the week. And that might be something that'll help you a lot. So consider sliding up to 4 park bench workouts a week. If you stick with 3, you're fine. I want to see you in the batting cage once a week at least. I'd love to see you more. And the other thing I want you to start thinking about is start doing a walk, jog, sprint program. I would like you to slowly build up to get some sprints in. One of the things you'll notice in adult league football and adult league softball is those weird muscle pulls. It used to be all hamstrings, but it's kind of disappeared now. but now we see a lot of adductor pulls once the season comes around. And you see a lot of this early season too, because most people, when you combine swinging hard and sprinting to someone who's been sitting in a chair, as I sit in a chair for a while, you might just tweak up that lower back. So 3 or 4 days a week park bench. I'd love to see us swing in the bat a little bit more, twice a week. And if you can, maybe one long walk every week, and then maybe 2 shorter ones where you mix in a little bit of running and then some accelerations out of that. Walk, start to run, add a little hint of sprinting, ease off. Walk, start to run, a little hint of sprinting, ease off. Just to get your legs ready for the season. I hope that would help. We got a question from Pete. After just listening to the last episode where you mentioned a couple of times that runners should be able to deadlift double body weight and overhead press body weight. Really it should be bench press body weight, but I put the challenge in there, Pete, to do with the overhead. I lift 3 days a week consistently on top of my running, always doing some sort of overhead press, usually barbell or your 235 kettlebell one-arm press. But I don't see much improvement. I can do quite a few pull-ups, no problem, but my overhead press is weak. Please help. Age 40, 5'9", 162. I think you're doing just fine. I mean, you didn't give me a number there, Pete, but you're doing just fine. Sometimes when I recommend something like that, what I'm trying to get you to do is, raise your eyes up a little bit. Try to raise the bar, if we many cliches as we can at once. There's nothing magical going to happen when you get that overhead press, save that I can say, well, now you're strong enough. But as long as you keep building on the process, you're taking, the steps toward the goal, you're doing the right thing. The fact that you're pretty good at pull-ups, but you struggle with the overhead press, that could be just the way you're wired too. I have been around guys who can pull up to death. There's a couple of people I know in Europe. They can do the pull-ups up to they can do a pull-up, bring in and touch the bar with their belly. But the moment we get a 24K kilobell in their hand, a 53-pound bell in their hand, you might as well have a 10,000-pound bell there. So it could just be the way you're wired. I think you're doing fine. And if I were you, I would just keep on keeping on and not worry about getting the goal within a week or two. Think more of maybe even a year or two. Give yourself some emotional distance from the goal and just keep practicing. We have a question from Brandon. Currently doing mass made simple, gained 12 pounds while maintaining waist measurements. Good job. That's great. I'm still overweight, 250 pounds at 6 foot. So you're where I was back when I was competing. I want to lose some fat and win my company's weight loss competition in January. We're really, Brandon, next January or this coming one. I know it will be 90% diet, so I'm cutting carbs to non-starchy vegetables only and removing beer. Well, that's not bad. I would even recommend vegetables at every meal, but I don't know where we are. I was planning on doing the 10,000 swing program for exercise during this. Would you make any alterations to the program or do it as written on the site? Don't forget, on the site at danjohnworkouts.com, you have other options besides the one that was in the article for T Nation. If the 10,000 swing challenge is the wrong approach to maintaining lean body mass while cutting weight, I'm open to any other program you would recommend. Well, you're on Mass Made Simple right now, and you're trying to lose weight. So can you see there's a couple things here. You're trying to lose fat. We have tried in the past, and it didn't work out, and we called it Lean Made Simple, where you did the Mass Made Simple workouts, but instead of constantly force feeding yourself, you actually, and we attempted this way, to use the Dan and Mary Eads middle-age makeover diet, which is very similar now to the modern Velocity diet. 3 protein shakes a day, and then 1 meal with lots and lots of vegetables. So Lean Made Simple is the 6-week program of Mass Made Simple with the asterisks. Now, on the squat, you really have to, if you weigh 225, do the 185 numbers. Well, you're 250, so I'd recommend maybe the 185 as the heaviest barbell, or even 135, because what we're trying to get in is the reps, and you'll notice it. It just heats up your metabolism. On the 10,000 swing program, on the site, we have those other options. I believe I have 6 different programs where you can do these different ways of getting there. Each one of the 6 gives you 250 swings, but you also push, pull, hinge squat, loaded carry, and do corrective work. And just to finish up here, Brandon, I'm not entirely comfortable that I understand all the dynamic here. So you're doing Mass Made Simple currently. You want to lose fat for the contest in January. So I think I'm misunderstanding I might be missing one simple point, and I apologize if I am, but you're doing some impressive stuff here. Again, as it comes up sometimes, how many rabbits are you chasing? The thing that really changed for me was, of course, going on to the fast mimicking diet. Well, of course, getting rid of a lot of damage and arthritis out of my body. But I think overall, Brandon, you're doing some good things. With the Mass Made Simple, maybe just eat more vegetables and just stick with that. It's a good program, and it does work if you for fat loss if you can handle the challenge of it. Well, we have a question from Scott. Bruce Lee's weightlifting consisted of 3 days a week, alternating 2 sets of 8 to 12 and 4 sets of 6 with the following lifts: squat, pullovers, rows, good mornings, bench press, and curls. His other workouts were extensive but geared towards cardio, running and stationary bike, and martial arts. What is your opinion of this plan for martial artists? Well, for one thing, that's one of the workouts he did. If you read the books written by John Little, or I guess they're online now, his journals, he had many more workouts than that. What is your opinion of this plan for martial artists? It's a 1960s hybrid bodybuilding program that probably what you would have found in just about any book or written at the time. It's just the way people train them. What is your opinion for this plan for a martial artist? Well, I mean, it's a plan. It's a bodybuilding plan, and it is what it is. I should probably add that I'm 60. Pains me to even type that. 5'6", 150 pounds. Do yoga, box, lift, usually the 5-3-1 protocol, but I've got a touch of the monkey mind and jump around the plan from plan to plan. Yeah, so I'm not sure there's even a question here on that second part, but just try to keep in mind that, I've read a lot about Bruce Lee, and he's as strong as I was when I was in the 9th grade and weighed 118 pounds. His programs, and don't forget, he also did massive amounts of isometrics and a bunch of other things. His plans are those kind of cobbled plans that we did back before we moved ahead in the field. Obviously, you look at the exercises here, and they are it is a powerlifting program from the era. This would be something you'd see in a Ted Williams book, in the Miles Callum book. These are this program is right basically out of those. You'd also even see it in some of the early work Arnold Schwarzenegger recommended for other people. But yeah, whether it's good or not for a martial artist, it's always tough. Whenever you talk about the sports like boxing or MMA or any of the combat sports, you might look like Mr. Universe, but if you got a glass jaw, no one cares. You're not going to last very long. So it's always going to be difficult in that particular area to figure out whether or not a workout is good or bad from the 50,000 foot view. Now, if I was coaching young Bruce Lee and we were competing, that's a different thing. Now, I know he got into some fights with people, but after that, I don't know if he ever competed again. Certainly, I've seen the demonstrations, and it's one of the things you learn in my field, especially with the strongman stuff. There's demonstrations and then there's reality. It is a show. So again, if you make fun of Bruce Lee, man, I might as well just write open. I'm going to have 10,000 emails that I'm a horrible person. But you're talking basically of a guy who became very famous because of the Green Hornet and became kind of this icon, deservedly so. But when you look at an icon's training, you have to be very careful. Like, for example, if you're going to look at Arnold's program to prepare himself for Conan the Barbarian and say, is this a good training program for a barbarian? I would say, well, if you're making a movie, yes. If you're going to be an actual barbarian and fight wizards and dragons and others, I don't know if it's the best program. Originally, Scott, when I saw this question, I was going to make up a lie, and here's what I was going to tell you. And it is true. Bruce Lee was in San Francisco training when I was young. And for whatever reason, before he ever became famous, we had this kind of interesting discussion in our home. And I remember my brother Gary, my brother Phil wanted to go up and go to his studio and learn. What I was going to tell you is that I went and he took me aside one day and asked me for training advice. But even I couldn't put up with that lie that long. You do a lot of stuff here. Honestly, if I were you, I would stick to the 5-3-1 protocol and continue doing the other stuff you're doing right now. The 5-3-1 should be good for your monkey mind. If you want me to answer your questions, remember, send them to podcasts@danjohnworkouts.com. I'm always happy to answer them right here. Until next time.